Hey everyone, welcome to My Wife the Dietitian, a weekly podcast about lifestyle and healthy eating. I'm Rob, and together with my wife Sandra, we invite you to join us on this informative yet entertaining journey through the complex world of healthy eating.
We'll cover everything but the kitchen sink. Each week we'll discuss topics ranging from how to protect yourself from developing cancer, spicy foods to rev up the libido, to caring for your palliative grandfather with Alzheimer's.
We'll also delve into more complex issues like, what the heck is oat milk? Why doesn't my butt fit into these jeans? And every guy's favorite question, will eating spinach really make it bigger? Join us each week as we strive to educate, enlighten, and entertain you. Hey Sandra, you know a lot of stuff. Have you heard of this dry February? What's that all about?
Yeah, it's a way to take action in your own life by not drinking alcohol for a month.
A whole month?
February is a short month.
Okay, right.
But there's actually other campaigns. Lose the Booze by the BC Cancer Foundation for January. It just is ending, and that's for a month of no alcohol. And it's highlighting the link between alcohol and cancer risk while raising funds for these different, the Cancer Foundation and the Cancer Society for Dry February.
That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, we're going to also talk about the new evidence linking cancer risk to light to moderate drinking and how the pandemic has changed people's drinking habits. But today, mainly we're going to talk about diet and nutrition and cancer prevention.
All right, it sounds like we're in for another informative session all about nutrition and cancer prevention. Stay with us. So on today's episode, we're going to be talking about cancer prevention. And Sandra, you've got quite a bit of experience in that field, right?
I do. Thanks. I'm really passionate about this topic, working at the cancer agency, BC Cancer Agency for 23 years. It's been a topic that I've been very interested in and trying to keep my finger on the pulse of what's the new evidence and the information out there. So yeah, there's lots to talk about actually.
Yeah, it seems like it's a real cutting edge, which is good that it's cutting edge. It means there's new information coming up all the time. But yeah, I can see that it would pique your interest.
Yeah, it might be one topic that we'll do this episode, but then we might do more episodes in the future because of new information or new studies that come out, and it's pretty there's a lot to talk about. So
all right, well let's dig in.
Yeah, so with cancer and diet, does it really matter? That's the question.
Do you want me to answer that? I think you should be the one answering that.
Well, I think people wonder, like, how much do daily habits like diet, exercise, drinking that glass of wine at dinner affect your risk for cancer?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's one of those things where people think, it's fate, and I can't affect it. I either get it or I don't. But
exactly. I really like that you said that, because I think that's really important, because with cancer risk, a lot of it is within our control. So a good proportion, like 90% of our risk, is through environment, including lifestyle, like how we live our life, what our foods we eat, the exercise we get, our stress, just the environmental pollution and toxins. But the things that we can't really affect are our age, like our genetics, like where who we were born, like our family history. So those things we can't modify, but most of the things in our lifestyle we definitely can modify.
Yeah, well, that's good news.
It is, except it's a sobering thought for many people in terms
of, oh
of,
man, now I gotta watch what I do all the time.
Well, I just wrote an article for the BC Cancer Agency about basically New Year's resolutions and rethink your drink for long-term health. And there was some sobering statistics showing that over the pandemic, people that started to drink more often, and that led to more kind of more permanent behaviors and habits. And they're finding that even light to moderate drinking has an increased risk of cancer. And basically 1 in 7 of all new cancers in 2020 were caused by light to moderate alcohol consumption.
Wow, that's crazy.
I know. And worldwide, it was 100,000 new cancer cases were diagnosed for people that just drank 2 drinks daily or light to moderate.
And that was strictly from or mostly from the drinking.
Yeah.
Is that what they're finding?
Yeah, that's what they're finding. And I think the Center for Addiction and Mental Health are really concerned that the temporary life stressors of having alcohol to deal with the pandemic, it's actually becoming more of a permanent new habit that people are starting to do more often, and thinking, I'll just have a glass of red wine. It's good for my heart. But actually, they're finding now it's not, no level of alcohol is safe, unfortunately, for cancer risk.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to find a new vice.
I know.
And we're going to talk about that on our Sexy Foods episode.
Yeah, we really should do that one.
Sex is going to be the new savior. Maybe. Anyway, carry on. I've got a one-track mind.
Funny. One question some people have about why does alcohol increase the cancer risk? And it's related to a few different reasons. Basically, the ethanol in the alcohol breaks down to a known carcinogen. So that damages the DNA. And the drinking alcohol increases levels of estrogen, which increases your risk of hormone-related cancers like breast cancer, ovarian, endometrial. So that affects a lot of women's risk of cancer.
Right.
And when we drink alcohol, it impairs our ability to break down and absorb important nutrients. So I'm going to talk a little bit about those important nutrients that protect against cancer.
Right. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Does it?
Well, it seems like at a very basic level, if your glass is full of something bad, then it can't be full of, at the same time, something good.
Right.
So if your body's the glass and you're filling your body with bad stuff, alcohol, and bad food or whatever, then there's no room for the good stuff.
Yeah.
That's my grade 2 explanation.
That's right.
For all you people that are on the same level of understanding as myself, we'll get through this together.
Well, the other thing about alcohol is, it reduces inhibitions and...
Does it? That's how we met, isn't it? There's some pluses to alcohol for a lot of people.
Funny. We met because my brother was your friend.
And we drank together.
Okay.
Anyways.
That's true. I think it would have happened anyways.
Yeah. Most good stories that people tell start with, we were drunk and...
So funny.
It'd be a different world if they got rid of alcohol. The stories would not be as much fun anymore.
I don't think they'll ever get rid of alcohol, and I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm just saying that it's one of many risks in our life, and it's one that just like candy, it's not good for you, but we're not going to stop eating it like forever. And
exactly,
so yeah. It's anyways, that's so with when I said about it reduces your inhibitions, I was talking more about like overeating, getting like eating in the evening because you're usually drinking later in the day, and then you end up overeating, and a lot of people don't really need to eat in the evening.
And you're not overeating salad and things like that. It's like bags of chips and right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're so funny. Exactly. That's right. That's right. The munchies almost, like just, and the thing with alcohol too, a lot of people combine alcohol and smoking. So you add those two risk factors together and your risk of head and neck cancer really like skyrockets. So yeah, that's the thing, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's not something that you want to be getting either. That's nasty stuff.
Yeah. And I think, people hear, oh, red wine's good for my heart. And it's like the chocolate, oh, dark chocolate's good for me. And then they eat it all the time. And then, red wine, oh, well, we just have a bottle. It's good for us. Oh, we'll get the second bottle going. Oh, it's good for our hearts.
Exactly, right?
But it's actually, it's just, yeah, it's too much.
It doesn't mean you can have more.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, there are modifiable risks in our life. And there's a good quote from National Institute of Health. Dr. Collins said, genes load the gun and lifestyle pulls the trigger. So a lot of like 25 to 30% of our risk is from smoking tobacco. So if you quit and become a non-smoker, then you reduce that much of your risk, which is huge.
Yeah, it's huge.
That is huge. And diet, including alcohol, 30 to 35% is related to diet and how you're eating.
That's also huge.
Yeah. And that's what we're going to spend most of our time with this episode on. The 15 to 20% infections. So HPV is a good example with people that have that have more risk of oral cancer and cervical cancer. So that's one that you can prevent too.
So diet then, is that...
Well, the rest, so the other little bits that also affect your risk of cancer that are environmental are related to stress in your life, physical activity or lack of, pollution and radiation. So radiation that, different sources of radiation in the environment.
Right. I think that's something that people have been aware of. Maybe not how much it affects you, but I think that we all kind of understand that radiation isn't good.
Right. Yeah. So in terms of what we can do besides quitting smoking and maybe limiting the alcohol, some of the most important things you can do is stay at a healthy weight. So basically keeping your weight a good weight for you, because it reduces your risk of heart disease, of diabetes, other chronic diseases, and definitely cancer.
Yeah, and obviously diet is a big factor in weight control. So
excess, like basically having too much weight causes your body to make and circulate more estrogen, and that increases the hormones that stimulate cancer growth.
Right.
Being overweight or obese can increase risk of breast cancer, colon and rectal cancer, endometrial cancer, esophageal, and liver, kidney, pancreas. So they're all related to having too much body fatness.
Wow. Okay. There you go.
And part of the issue, I think, other than the diet part, like the portions and the excess sugar and calories and ultra processed foods, is the sitting disease and not moving enough.
Right. Which is pretty common these days with just different jobs that people are doing. And yeah, we're a more sedentary society in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. I know. I mean, you just think of, you get up and you get in your car and you drive to work, you sit at a desk, like for a lot of people, right? Mm-hmm. Like this is like, where in your day are you actually walking around or active? And that is a huge, it has a huge effect.
Yeah, exactly. And we don't prioritize exercise. Typically, most people are, thinking, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got work to do and family commitments. And if I have time, I'll go for a walk or get some exercise, but it's not the top of the priority list, and it should be fairly close to the top.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of it is our environment and where we live and how easy it is to be active and walk and have pathways and have, safe cycling lanes and being in a place where you can get out and move and not drive your car. That's a huge key that I don't think a lot of people understand that that's a huge factor.
Right, exactly.
So some of the types of cancers that are linked to unhealthy food choices, we kind of covered some of them, but I'm just going to go from head to toe on the actual specific cancer sites. So head and neck, esophageal, lung, breast, stomach, pancreatic, liver, bladder, bowel, ovarian, and prostate. So all of those have been shown to be linked with poor eating habits or some way, some part of the diet is affecting the cancer risk for those.
Yeah, and that's a pretty healthy list there.
Yeah,
Wow.
That's a lot. Yeah, and actually it's interesting. So we're going to talk about diet and
how diet affects that. Like what foods to eat, what foods not to eat, that sort of thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And I might say specifically like this would affect breast cancer risk or prostate.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So the list, so from the other podcasts we've done, it's a bit of a quiz. What do you think is really important in terms of, remember we talked about the
I know.
rusty car. So what's that?
That's antioxidants.
And where do the antioxidants come from?
They come from colorful foods.
Plant foods.
Plant foods.
Yeah. Sorry, I quizzed you. That's not fair.
Yeah, you put me on the spot.
I totally did.
I didn't even study.
Okay.
It's a good thing I listen.
You do listen. That's awesome. So
because I'd be sleeping in the doghouse tonight if I got that wrong.
Then it's cold out there.
Just so you know. Exactly.
I think there's some, we found a bat downstairs that was dead. So I'm just wondering, hopefully there's no other bats.
Yeah, that was kind of creepy.
That was creepy. Anyways. Okay. We might have to cut that
total tangent.
Yeah. So plant foods. And like you said, that's exactly right. The phytochemicals, the rainbow of colors, because you're getting different phytochemicals in different foods.
So we were also talking the other day about, I think you said there was a relationship between lung cancer and high doses of beta carotene.
Yeah, good memory. Yeah.
Bonus points for me.
Absolutely. Exactly. So the study showed that smokers that were taking large doses of beta carotene in a supplemental form actually had increased risk of lung cancer. But with lung cancer, it's interesting. What's protective is cruciferous vegetables. So the broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, those types of vegetables are could be helpful for lung cancer. So you do get some beta carotene in that, but it's in a food source. So that's why it's good to include those most days if you can.
So it was just the non-food source that was dangerous?
The supplement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, and that people ask too, like I've had patients say, oh, well, so I can't take, foods that have beta carotene no, it's not the food, it's the supplements. So you can definitely, and cruciferous vegetables, they have the beneficial phytochemicals. They're so healthy for us to reduce our risk for many of the cancers, plus good for heart health and just excellent foods.
And so did you just list those? Did I miss that?
The cabbage, the broccoli, cauliflower.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
I think the way that they got why they're called cruciferous vegetables is when you cut them, they actually have a cross.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah, it's really the way they grow. And it's funny, our chickens just love cabbage and they love the vegetables, the broccoli, and I grow it and then I throw it over to them because then, I mean, we eat it,
Chicken food.
but all the, yeah. Oh, and then, when we talk about longevity and diet to help prevent dementia, diet factors to help with aging well, one of the things that I learned recently is that if you eat plants that have been damaged by slugs or pests, like if the leaves are a little bit jagged or, you see a slug on the cabbage, that plant emits chemicals that are even stronger, that when we eat them, they're really good for our health and actually help promote our longevity because it's like a survival kind of thing.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling the way
Nature.
nature functions. It's amazing.
It totally is. It's kind of like you almost think, okay, I guess we don't want that perfect, like the perfect lettuce and the perfect looking vegetables. Like you almost want the ugly vegetables and the
Totally.
ugly fruits and the ragged lettuce, because if it's been nibbled on by pests, then, well, for one thing, that there's no pesticides spraying on it. So it doesn't have that chemical that's going to impact your health.
Exactly.
But also the plant chemicals like the antioxidants are really helpful for our cells, and so that's a tangent, I think. But
A really interesting one, though.
yeah, it's kind of cool. Yeah. So the rainbow of colors, and we talked about beta carotene, and that's in orange vegetables and fruits. And lycopene is helpful to prevent prostate cancer in men. And it's red. So the lycopene's the red element in tomato products. So the one study found that men who had about 1.5 servings of tomato products a day had lower rates of prostate cancer.
Well, that's promising, because that's easy enough to include that.
Yeah, like V8 juice or low sodium tomato juice, or salsa, the canned tomatoes, the canned all the different tomato types of products.
Yeah, right. That's awesome.
And the cool thing is, and I've probably told you this a million times before, you get more lycopene from the processed tomatoes, like the cooked processed tomatoes, versus a fresh tomato.
Well, that's different than most things, hey?
Yeah, because everybody thinks, oh, the raw food diet's so good, and everything raw.
Raw, raw, raw.
But actually, it's for some things, like with lycopene, it's fat soluble, and you get more concentrated amounts in the processed tomato products.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's and just the fact that men that had they actually measured their blood level, and if their blood level had about 1.5 servings a day of tomato products, then that reduced the risk of prostate cancer. So
nice.
That was really cool to see that study. So yeah, that's so lycopene, and lutein is one that you've probably heard about, good for your eye health.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and that's also in leafy green vegetables, and it's a phytochemical and antioxidant also. So that's another one to try to include.
And these are good for all the types of cancer?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, those are good. It's preventative. We're learning more and more about phytochemicals and antioxidants and how they help in different parts of our body. The garlic, onions, bulbs, leeks, the sulfur-containing compounds, the ones that are sulfury smelling, they're really, really good for us. Like really good.
And they keep away vampires, apparently, too.
You're funny. It's funny, actually. There's they're good for preventing cancer overall, but they help with reducing stomach cancer because of it helps to reduce bacteria in the stomach. certain bacteria, and
Right.
then that can help protect against stomach cancer. And the sulfur compounds, just when you smell that, you know that that's a protective food.
Exactly.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the same with the cruciferous vegetables, because they have that distinctive smell, and sometimes it can turn you off, but it's actually really healthful for us.
Yeah. It's funny how nature is that way. Sometimes the things that look the worst and smell the worst are actually the best, healthiest for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So the next thing is tea. So especially green tea is good for cancer prevention.
I like green tea.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's good. I mean, I think we talked about this before about with tea and coffee and how, there's definitely protective elements with those beverages. But part of the problem is how we sweeten them up and, put cream and sugar in there. And, that kind of reduces the good effects.
Yeah. I like my green tea just straight up.
Okay, so this is an interesting thing about that, because people that drink hot beverages daily have an increased risk of esophageal cancer.
Okay.
Rob's looking at me like, what?
No, I'm just kind of computing to see if that makes sense. And I suppose it does if you're,
Because you could be you're burning the tissue,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then your body's having to reproduce healthy cells and tissue, and then that's when the mutation can happen. So,
But how hot are we talking? Like scalding?
yeah,
Yeah.
pretty hot. Like where you pour the tea and you drink it, like hot. And some people like it that way, and it's actually not a good thing if you always drink your beverages like scalding hot.
Okay. Well, I don't like that anyway, so I'm good. I'm good on that front.
And with esophageal cancer, smoking really can increase your risk, and alcohol. So, as I mentioned before, a lot of times drinking and smoking go hand in hand, and that can raise the risk for esophageal cancer. Being obese, and also having, chronic heartburn, like GERD, so gastroesophageal reflux disease.
Right.
Chronic heartburn can lead to Barrett's esophagus, which can lead to esophageal cancer, and that's a kind of a nasty one. It's it's not good. So if there's weight that you can get the weight down and get control of the reflux, and maybe not smoke and drink, then you can prevent your risk of esophageal cancer.
Yeah. Totally controllable or preventable. Well, not totally preventable, but a lot more preventable than we probably all thought. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's right. With bowel cancer, having a healthy weight is really important. And I'm sure a lot of people know about the red meat issue, and reducing the amount of red meat, and especially the cured, processed, nitrated meats. So
like
bacon.
or deli meat, is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, deli meats. They've shown evidence now that there's really, with that, there's no safe level. So it's just not a good thing to include in a healthy diet. I know there's, people buy sausages quite often, or bacon, and it's part of their staple when they're grocery shopping. And it's really not good for you. Like the risk of pancreatic cancer goes up, colon cancer. It's they're so full of salt and nitrates and fat that it's just not worth, like that little bit of protein you might get from them.
Yeah, it's a treat. It's not a staple kind of meat serving. It's a treat once in a while.
Yeah, I agree totally.
Yeah.
I think that's how we kind of use it in this house. Is just we don't buy it all the time, but sometimes we'll have it for breakfast or
breakfast.
No, I mean bacon or sausage.
Bacon sausage for breakfast. Yeah.
Why?
Well, I suppose you can have some. I'm just thinking the sausages I'm thinking of are like when I make like hors d'oeuvres, and you've got like spicy garlic sausage or whatever. So yeah, I'm not having that with my oatmeal in the morning.
No, I guess not.
No.
No. And, pizza, you could totally make a pizza healthier by what toppings you get, right? So the ones that have, pepperoni and Italian sausage and, those, like I said, a treat. They're not a great thing to have all the time. And it's probably way better if you have, vegetarian, or if you load up your pizza with lots of different vegetables, then much, much healthier.
The one thing we've been doing, partly because we can't all agree on what we want on our pizza, we'll just buy a plain cheese pizza and dress it up with stuff that we have, our own vegetables and different toppings. And so then you kind of know where your ingredients are coming from, and you can, choose what you want on
and
it.
It's delicious. Remember we did like the roasted red peppers and onions and roasted cauliflower, and like we just roasted a whole pan of different vegetables, and it was just and then I think we had, I don't know, some sort of cheese like feta or something, and it was just delicious.
It was good and pretty easy. I mean, making your own pizza from scratch is a bit of an ordeal. It takes a bit more time, and it tastes homemade sometimes, which isn't great. So this is just an easy, quick homemade pizza, but with all the hard stuff done for you.
Yeah, and healthier because of the vegetables that you put on it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And pineapple. That's also another one that I love. But so a few other things. Artificial sweeteners, the jury's still out on that, but I just think it's probably not a great idea to have a lot of artificial sweeteners in your diet because they're artificial, and I think they give your taste buds that sense of sweetness, and then you go and you eat real sugary things after, and I just think it's just not good on so many levels. So maybe just try to reduce your sweet tooth if you can, because it can be a problem with cancer risk, with diabetes risk, with heart disease. Not a good thing.
Right.
Vitamin D, we talked about in our immune talk, but it's really important to reducing overall risk just to not be deficient in vitamin D. And they've shown evidence with prostate cancer risk, with breast cancer, and I think they're finding more and more with other cancers and other diseases with having enough vitamin D and not being deficient.
Right. And I mean, it's one that you want to have enough of regardless of any thoughts of cancer prevention.
Yeah.
As is everything on that list you just mentioned, those are all just regular healthy diet items, nothing special.
That's right.
Stuff you should be doing anyway.
Well, yeah, I think all these things are, we would probably say or
include in a healthy diet, a healthy balanced diet.
Yeah, in a lot of our episodes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I just want to point out 2 types of cancer that have specific information. Like with breast cancer, the risks of breast cancer go up with age and family history. So if you have a family history of a mother, an aunt, a grandmother that has breast cancer, then you might have the genetic tendency, the ER positive, like you might have a like estrogen receptor type of breast cancer that you might be more at risk for. There's other factors like alcohol. So I think I mentioned having circulating estrogen levels in your body can increase your risk of breast cancer. And so not having kids can cause that, where you don't have, like having kids is actually protective for breast cancer. Breastfeeding is protective.
Interesting.
Having an early period so that in your lifespan, you have a longer time of being exposed to estrogen can all affect your breast cancer risk. And with diet, having a high fat diet, they've shown that that can affect your risk of breast cancer too.
Well, that's good information.
Yeah. And the prostate cancer, age is the greatest risk. So every decade, your risk goes up. So by the time you're 100 as a man, you probably have 100% chance of having prostate cancer.
Which sounds horrible, but you're 100, so.
Well, and I mean, usually at that point, a lot of times men will actually pass away from other diseases like heart disease because sometimes it's linked. So what you're eating, what's good for the heart is good for the prostate. And as you age, the prostate has more risk of developing cancer. It's one of the cancers that is least severe.
That's a good choice of words. Yeah, that's what I've heard too. It's a bit more treatable than some of the other cancers.
It's still devastating for people that have prostate cancer, and definitely there's a genetic link with uncles and fathers and grandfathers. If you have a family history of prostate cancer, there's an increased risk for you.
Good to know.
And I think I talked about with lycopene is a preventative for prostate.
Yep.
Selenium, which it's more if you are deficient in that micronutrient, the micromineral, then you could have an increased risk of prostate cancer. So I always suggest if you can eat a Brazil nut, the one nut will give you about the equivalent of 2 day servings of selenium.
I remember that too.
Okay. So the other part is decreasing your animal food intake, and that's with the saturated fats and cholesterol. We want you to reduce that and increase your plant-based foods, including soy, possibly helps reduce the risk of prostate cancer. So tofu, soy milk, soy nuts, other soy products.
Right. Yeah, we talked about that in the milk episode, I think. Quite a bit. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And having fish twice a week is good. And just trying to eat more vegetables and whole grains.
Like always.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, and one last thing with the environment, cookware, packaging, pesticides and hormones in the food or how our food's contained, that can impact our cancer risk too. So
just things to be aware of when you're choosing your food.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Well,
yeah.
Like microwave popcorn, for instance. When you get the kind that you put the bag in the microwave, that's not so good.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's really actually not good at all. It's better to air pop your popcorn.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. I'm sure a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah, it's got the PFCs in the bag, and Teflon's not so good either. Some pizza boxes and wrappers, like sandwich wrappers. And that what happens is it's in the bloodstream in the population, and this is actually a risk for cancer, so it's not good.
That is not good. That is no bueno.
So with the bowel cancer risk, and the reason that red meat is an issue, scientists have found that it's hard to put your finger on the actual reason that meat can be a problem. And we're talking about like red meat, and we don't know if it's the red meat itself or if it's the fact that sometimes like red meat eaters tend to have, like, say, if you think of a big steak and potato meal and there's hardly any vegetables with that, and the plate ratio is like a huge steak, and so red meat eaters might not have as many vegetables and just in general in their diet, so that might contribute to the risk of colon cancer. The other factor is with red meat, if you're barbecuing or if you have the fat dripping, it creates the heterocyclamines, and those are dangerous chemicals that happen with the flame that meets the fat of the meat. And when you eat the burnt, charred part of the meat, then
you're eating the carcinogens, like the burnt stuff. Yeah, it is tasty, and burnt bacon's like that too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anything burnt. You always say, oh, if it's like a black pancake or grilled cheese, and I always just call it Cajun and dress it up with a little garnish and try to sell it to you anyway, but you're too smart for that.
That's funny. Yeah. And then with the other part of the red meat is we already talked about the nitrated cured deli meats are just, that's part of the puzzle too, the risk of colon cancer. So basically, cancer and diet, does it really matter? Absolutely, it matters. Let's challenge ourselves to lose some extra pounds, increase our physical activity, make healthy food choices, avoid or at least limit our alcohol, and look for ways to make our communities healthier for us to live, work, and play.
That's some great advice right there. Yeah, I don't really have anything more to add to that. It's all that needs to be said. So there you go. That's another episode of My Wife, the Dietitian. And we will be back next week with more fun and informative chit-chat. So thank you, Sandra, and we'll chat more next week.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks for joining us today on My Wife, the Dietitian. If you like what you heard, don't be shy. Leave us a comment or review, and be sure to share our podcast with your friends. If you'd like to hear more, hit that subscribe button. You can also follow us on our social media pages for updates, episode trailers, and other odds and ends. For more info and links on what we discussed on today's episode, check the show notes. We'll be back next week with another informative and fun-filled episode.